So, what are the component parts of a California's bill title? Well, in Article 4, Section 9 of our state constitution, it actually requires each bill to have a title. The Section 9, this constitutional provision says, a statute shall embrace but one subject, which shall be expressed in its title. That, of course, is the single subject rule. And if a statute embraces a subject not expressed in its title, then only the part not expressed is void, and a statute may not be amended by reference to its title. So the title basically serves as a broad description of the bill. Now we have additional guidance in Joint Rule 7, so the joint rules of the Assembly and Senate. Joint Rule 7 is actually called Title of a Bill. And it says that the title of every bill introduced shall convey an accurate idea of the contents of the bill, and it shall indicate the scope of the act and the object to be accomplished. In amending a code section, the mere reference to the section by number is not deemed sufficient. A bill's title usually has a few words, 2 to 5 on average, about what the bill relates to. And this, of course, follows relating to taxation, to workforce development, to healthcare, etc. Now, because of this constitutional provision, a bill's title has to be legally sufficient by describing the general subject of the bill's contents, and an attorney at the Office of Legislative Counsel will prepare the title after they have drafted the contents of the bill. As each bill is required to contain one broad subject matter in the title, that subject has to be properly expressed in the actual title of the bill. Recall again the Constitution in Section 9 that an enacted bill is void if the subject is not expressed in the actual title. So, as a general rule, the title has to be broad enough to be germane to the same general subject matter, and so it identifies generally the subject matter of the bill. The purpose of the bill is to ensure that that a person is able to determine what the bill deals with, right? That's the purpose of the title. And additionally, the legal purpose of the title is to prevent the concealment of the true nature of the provisions of the bill, both from the legislature, of course, and the general public reviewing it. So as a result, the title of the bill serves as a means of identifying the subject matter of the bill. And it's important that that title properly describes what a bill is about rather than what the bill intends or how the bill accomplishes its purpose. That's, of course, left to the committee and floor analyses. Now, keep in mind, Section 9 is mandatory, and a bill that fails to comply with this requirement is void. So, in order to comply with the requirement, the title has to give notice about that subject matter. The bill title generally begins with the phrase, an act relating to. So, for example, I looked at SB 5 from the 1920 session, and it talks about an act to add provisions to the Education Code, the Government Code, and the Revenue Tax Code relating to local government finance. So the subject matter, of course, is local government finance, which you find in the title of the bill after the relating to clause. The practice here in California and a number of other states is to include the references to code sections and whether the bill adds, amends, or repeals those code sections in the actual title. So again, the title designates the subject matter of the bill in general terms. That title is generally broader than the specific subject matter. It can't be narrower. A more narrow one is in the subject line, which is later on in the bill. So you don't want something as narrow as, say, an act relating to personal exemptions under the income tax law for persons 65 years of age or older. Instead, a title will generally read relating to the personal income tax or perhaps relating to taxation. Because if a title were to include a very detailed description, such as my first one, then the title would have to express literally every detail in the bill. Otherwise, if it wasn't included in that title, it might be deemed void or invalid by a court, right? On the other hand, a bill title so broad may not comply with the constitutional requirement in Section 9 either. For example, the Oregon Supreme Court said that the title relating to the activities regulated by state government was not identifying a single subject. And the California Supreme Court ruled that a bill's title that was relating to fiscal affairs was too broad and therefore invalid under Section 9. Now, the bill's title has two mandatory items. It always begins with an Act 2, and then you have add, amend, repeal, the code sections, relating to, and then the general subject. And sometimes the title might include some additional statements after that relating to clause, such as whether it makes an appropriation, it contains an urgency clause, it's a tax levy, or it's some other form, such as an appropriation related to the budget or a bill calling an election. So basically, all the bills that take effect immediately are actually noted in the title after the relating to clause.